Hello, everybody. Today, I would just like to give some thoughts. Father's Day was yesterday. However, a year ago today, Father's Day was June 16th, 2024. On June 16th, 2024, I was up at King of the Baggers in Brainerd. And for those of you who don't know, King of the Baggers is bagger motorcycle racing, essentially, as I'm sure indicated by my hat. It's typically Indian motorcycle versus Harley Davidson motorcycle. It's fun, it's entertaining. And I was there with my son, Oliver, who was 9 years old at the time. I was there with my dad, my uncle, his grandson, and my nephew. The weekend kicked off fun. We went up to Brainerd, stopped along the way many a times, getting the boys candy and Gatorade and getting them all sugared up. And it was great. It was all the kids were around the same age, so they were just fighting each other numerous times. Most of the time good. Sometimes they were just being goofballs and whatever. So we spent the weekend having a whole lot of fun. And then everything kind of came to a very scary halt. This video is being unedited. I have no notes. I'm just going purely off memory here and might be rambling at times, but I hope you bear with me. So that day, we got to do a parade lap around Brainerd International Raceway, BAR. And Oliver was on the back with me. Other kids were on the back with my uncle and my dad. We got to do a couple laps around the track, which was really cool to see the perspective of the racers when they're doing that. That morning, I happened to overhear my dad tell my nephew that he has to wear jeans. And my nephew didn't want to wear jeans, and he's like, I have to wear jeans. I'm like, you know what? That's a good idea. Oliver, you are going to wear jeans. Something I normally just was like, I didn't care about. He's like, why? And I said, because you have to. And I told him that the track officials would not let us participate in this parade lap unless he wore his jeans. And he's like, oh, fine, begrudgingly put them on. And I said, you also have to wear your riding jacket. And he said, well, the others don't have to wear that. And I said, yeah, but you do. Because you have a riding jacket. They don't have a riding jacket. You do. And you are going to wear it. I'll get to it later, but what a blessing in disguise that was. So we did the parade lap. It was a lot of fun. Boys loved it. Oliver got his helmet signed by his two favorite riders, Tyler O'Hara and Troy Herfoss for Indian Motorcycle. We got to meet Troy at the Indian tent, and wow, what a stand-up guy. He was super nice. Tyler O'Hara, salt of the earth guy. These guys are just genuine, down to earth, humble guys, and it was really awesome to meet them. So the race happened, and I don't even remember who won. Couldn't even tell you. But we left that day, and we were headed home. And we stopped off at Bill's in I can never remember the name of the town, Royalton. We stopped off at Bill's there and fueled up, and we're ready for the ride home. And I'm thinking, like, what a perfect end. What a perfect end to Father's Day. Got to spend it with my son. Got to spend it with my dad. Got to spend it doing something that all of us love. We all had a whole lot of fun. And now it's just a beautiful ride home. The sun isn't going down, but it's afternoon. And I'm like, this is great. We're going to get home and kind of just reminisce about how much fun we had. My dad, my uncle, and I have Bluetooth communication in our helmet. And I wear a Shoei Neotech 2 helmet. And it has an integrated Sena SLR2, I think is the name. And for some reason, every once in a blue moon, my Bluetooth just won't work. I don't really know why, but I have to factory reset it every now and then. And it's only happened like 3 times since I've owned the helmet. I've had the helmet for about 3 years. And today was one of those days. I tried resetting it while we were at the races, and just it wasn't working. And I was thinking, well, and I told my dad and my uncle, so they knew. And I was like, I'll just follow your guys' lead. So it was decided that my dad would lead, I would be in the middle, and my uncle would be in the rear. We took 95 all the way, and typically we would take 95 all the way to the North Branch area, and from there we would split off and go our separate ways. However, this time in particular, I was following my dad's lead, and he turned south on Highway 47. And I'm thinking, that's bizarre. Why wouldn't we just take 95? But I'm like, whatever. And for context, on the detail that I'm getting to, I'm not mad at my dad for that. I don't hold any ill will for that at all. Just a change of course really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. It happens all the time. And I'm thinking maybe we're taking a more scenic route. I'm familiar with the area, so I was trying to think, like, why are we going this way? Doesn't matter. I don't have communication. I'm just following the leader. A few miles down the road, we're riding staggered. So what that means is my dad is in the left side of his lane, and I'm in the right side of my lane. A few miles down the road, I see out of the left corner of my eye a deer. And this deer was on a dead sprint. The deer ran in between my dad's motorcycle and I. And I register it, and I started applying the brakes the way that I've watched countless instructional videos on YouTube from very experienced riders. Biggest thing on a motorcycle, you don't want to just pull the brakes. That's not a good thing. You're going to lay the bike down. You want to apply it quickly and aggressively, but not a quick grab like you would in a car. You just slam on the brakes. It's not quite how you do it on a motorcycle. So I start doing that, and the deer looks at me, and I look at the deer, and the deer just stops in the road and jumps. And when the deer jumped, I'm holding onto the bike like this. I see the deer jumping, and I duck like this to try and avoid it. The deer's right rear leg hit me in the head, and if I was not wearing a helmet, I would have died. My neck would have snapped based on the force that I experienced. I wear a full face helmet, so I had really thick padding. It's hard to show here. I had really thick padding, and when I got hit, my neck went like this, but the padding and the helmet saved my life. I quickly stopped the bike. I was able to keep the bike up. I ride a 2023 Indian Challenger. Stopped the bike, put it in neutral, and I was going to check on Oliver to make sure he was okay. And when I turned around, it was one of my worst nightmares. And I say one of because it really honestly only gets worse from here. I turned around, and the passenger seat was empty. Where did Oliver go? A quick turn the bike off, and I got off the bike, turned around, and I saw Oliver's shoe in the middle of the road. I took my helmet off, threw it, out of frustration, out of fear, out of rage, out of every emotion I could think of that was negative. I ran probably faster than Usain Bolt over to that shoe. And when I got there, I saw Oliver laying in the ditch on the west side of 47. So the left side. I ran over to him, and I could tell immediately that Oliver was dead. I work in a career where I experience death more often than I should, more often than anyone should be exposed to, but I experience death in situations like that. And I knew based on my training and my experience that he was dead. I didn't check for a pulse. I didn't want to know. But I knew he wasn't breathing. This is kind of hard. I started doing sternum rubs, which if you don't know what that is, you make a fist like this, and these knuckles you put on somebody's sternum and you rub like this hard. You're trying to cause pain to get them to snap out of what they're going through, essentially. And I was not getting a response. And I remember looking to the sky, screaming, God, don't take my son. God, do not take my son. Today is not the day. God, do not take my son. And I am trying my best to stay calm, but it's almost impossible to stay calm at that point. My dad had turned around and flew right by me, turned around, put it in park, and just, it's kind of funny. Your training takes over, and I just looked at him and I said, call 911, as if it wasn't obvious. That's just a testament to your training and experience taking over. He was on it. My dad was calm. My dad was collected. My dad was everything that I needed him to be in that moment. I kept doing sternum rubs, and I was screaming at Oliver to wake up. I said, don't you quit. Don't you give up on me now. Don't quit. Wake up. Wake up. And I was screaming this as loud as I possibly could. Wake up. I don't even know. I couldn't even venture a guess as to how long I was doing that. And his eyes were closed, and he just looked at peace. And I didn't want that yet. He's 9 years old. Eventually, I started to see some water, some tears pooling in his closed eyes. And I don't even know. I knew that I had a chance to get him back. And I brought him back because shortly after that, his eyes opened up and he started screaming. And he started flailing around. And I was overcome with relief for a brief second, because I knew, A, he's breathing because he's screaming. B, he's not paralyzed because his arms are flailing around and his legs were flailing around. So I knew that was those were good signs. Shortly after that, while my dad was on the phone with 911, we were in Isanti County. And as he was on the phone with two Isanti County deputies, as he was on the phone with Isanti County, two Isanti County deputies were right there. They happened to be there. No lights, no sirens. Just happened to be in the area. They turned around and they were kind of, God bless them, but they were kind of like, whoa, what's going on? We're getting dispatched to this. They're kind of doing the same thing, flying by the seat of their pants. And my dad, again, is giving them the rundown on what's going on. First, Isanti County deputy came over and held Oliver's head in place. And I looked at that deputy and I said, you stay here. I'm going to go shoot that deer. And I was so mad. And the deputy did the right thing. And he said, no, you are not going to do that right now. You are going to stay here and be with your son. Your son needs you. That deer does not. And I looked at my dad and I said, Dad, take my gun and go shoot that deer right now. And my dad said the same thing. We need to be here with you and Oliver. And at the time, I was so mad that somebody would not go shoot this thing that did this to my son. But I now obviously understand why. Kept him as comfortable as possible, left his helmet on, all the precautionary things until the ambulance arrived. They took over care of Oliver. They were able to get the helmet off of him safely, determined there were no head injuries. Oliver also wears a full-faced helmet. This helmet right here was the one. He had it signed by Tyler O'Hara that day. He had it signed by Troy Herfoss that day. This was the impact of his helmet. I don't know if you can really see that on camera. Based on the trajectory that I didn't see, but based on the scratching of this helmet, this was Oliver's head on impact. This was the angle that his head hit the pavement. EMS told me we need a landing. They were talking amongst each other. We need a landing zone set up. And I was like, what landing zone? They're like, we are getting him out of here. We are getting a helicopter. We're getting you guys out. So a helicopter shows up. And I remember asking, like, why? And when you're in that state of mind, you just ask really irrational questions. And they were like, it is a motorcycle crash with a kid. We're getting him out. Fair enough. I did not leave Oliver's side that entire time, and I promised him that. He was scared. I was scared. I was trying my absolute best to stay calm for him. I was with him in the rig. Gave my dad my phone. I said, you call everyone you need to. I'm busy. And he knew that. Again, training and experience takes over. He knew that. He knew what he needed to do, and he did it. And he did it perfectly. Helicopter shows up. We get in the helicopter. And I'm sitting in the front. Now, this is my first time in a helicopter. And I remember at one point, just a quick second, and I really hope this isn't misperceived as selfish, but I was thinking, gosh, this is my first time in a helicopter. Bizarre. And I just had that quick, brief second thought, and immediately I was back on Oliver. The medics in the back were doing great at giving me updates. I was hearing updates in the headset thing I was wearing. And they said he's sleeping, which is okay because they gave him medication. So it wasn't a bad thing that he was sleeping. They just wanted to give me that update. And I said, okay. We got to Children's in Minneapolis, and we're wheeling him in, and they bring him to the number 1 trauma room. I think that's what they call it, like their main room. And Oliver still had a collar around his neck. Had blood on his knuckles. And I didn't even want to know what else. The first thing that I encountered was somebody who introduced themselves as a social worker, which scared me to death. And I remember the first question I said is, are you going to take my son from me? She reassured me that's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to simply be here for you. I work with the hospital to give you comfort. And I remember thinking, you need a different job title, because that is not the job title that I want to know right now. My ex-wife showed up with my stepmom. My stepmom gave her a ride down. And we embraced, and I just kept telling her, I'm so sorry. And she told me it's okay. We went over to see Oliver. My stepmom brought her from the Lindstrom area. So they took Highway 8, and they had every green light the whole way, which Never happens on Highway 8. If you're familiar with that area, never happens. They're working on him for a bit, and they tell us he's going to be okay. No broken bones, nothing like that. Awesome. They move us to a room where we're going to be overnight. They leave the collar on because they want to be overly cautious, which I get. We had a conversation amongst the family, and God came up. And after everyone had left and we were laying down for the night, I remember thinking, why would God do this to such an innocent boy? A kid who wouldn't even hurt a fly is now in a hospital bed, brought back from the dead. Why would God do that? Why would he put us through this? It doesn't make sense. I asked God, why did you do this? This doesn't make sense. I'm mad at you. An all-loving God did this to an innocent child. The next day, I would have my answer. The next day, Oliver woke up in a daze, which makes sense. He was heavily medicated. And I asked him how he was doing. And for those of you who know me, Oliver is, boy, the apple does not fall far from the tree. The first thing Oliver said to me when I said, how are you doing? This is the first time I've been able to talk to him since. First time he's been able to talk since. First thing he says, is the bike okay? And I'm thinking, I don't know. And I don't care. How are you doing, Oliver? I don't care about the bike. And he's like, well, yeah, I'm okay. But like, how is the bike? And I'm like, I don't know. And I don't care. I would later find out that the motorcycle was untouched. No damage, except a tiny little scuff on the passenger seat, which is a testament to how high that deer jumped. I couldn't even estimate how high, but irrelevant to me. And then he said he was doing okay, and I asked him how, what are you feeling? And he said he's hurt and he's got pain, but it's not too bad. And he said, Dad, is the other car okay? And I said, what other car? He said, well, there was another car there. And I said, there were a lot of emergency vehicles there for sure. Now, for context, 47 you can see from miles north and miles south. Miles. So you would know if there was another car there. And I said, there was not another car there. He goes, well, there was. I said, and it wasn't like a police officer, ambulance. No, it was like a red car. Like, okay. I said, well, there wasn't, but you're good now. You're safe. And he again corrected me. He said, no, there was a car there. There was a man there. And I said, yeah, there were a lot of men and women there helping you. He said, no, there was a man driving that car. And I said, all right, what did he look like? And he goes, well, he was wearing all white. And immediately I knew what he was talking about. I knew he was talking about Jesus Christ. And I was going to intentionally ask him the wrong descriptors, because human nature, you're asked, hey, did they look like this? And when you're in a state of shock like that, you're thinking, yeah, oh yeah, that's what they look like. Now, for context, at the time, we did not have any pictures of Jesus in our house. We did not attend church hardly at all. I considered myself a Christian with Christ in my life. However, that was really about it. I didn't read the Bible. I didn't pray often. Nothing like that. So I'm like, all white. And I said, did he have hair like me? No, he didn't have, no, he had long brown hair. And I said, how long? Like your hair long? And his hair like went to here. And he said, no, it was like down to here. I'm like, okay. How about facial hair? Was he clean shaven like me? Or did he, what did he look like? He goes, no. He did not have, he was not clean shaven. He had a beard like this. I said, okay. I said, did he say anything to you? Again, I was with Oliver this whole time. He said, yeah, he did. What did he say? Well, he told me, Oliver, you will be okay. I said, wow, okay. I don't remember anybody saying that. I said, and you're certain that you saw and heard that? He goes, yes, I that's exactly what he said. Oliver, you will be okay. Okay. I said, Oliver, I think I know who you saw, but I want to confirm. He goes, okay. So I went on my phone, pulled up a picture of Jesus on Google. And I said, is this who you saw? And I turned the phone around. And he looked at the phone and he said, yes, that is who I saw. And I fell to my knees at that point, because I had my answer. I had my answer as to why God did this. God wanted me to share the good news with my kids and with my family, like I hadn't been doing. God put his hands on my shoulders and shook me and said, Jeff, I want a life with you. I want you to share the good news with your kids. I want a relationship with you. I want a relationship with Oliver, and I want a relationship with Brooks and everyone else in your family. And I surrendered my life to God in that moment. I held Oliver tight but fragile, and I said, son, you were saved by the King of Kings. And I couldn't believe it. The story never gets easier to tell. I will always hear Oliver's screams. I will always see Oliver kicking around. I will always remember every minute detail of that day. It will never go away. Some people in my life had said, why don't you get over it? Just get over it. He's fine. He's alive. I'm telling you right now that he wasn't. And that as a parent, I had to go through a parent's worst nightmare and see my child lifeless at 9 years old. And my dad would later tell me that he saw the crash happen in his rearview mirror, and that he saw Oliver foot over head, about 20 feet in the air, and land, like I showed you earlier. In my career, that is a fatal crash every day. Like I said earlier, I've experienced death numerous times. That's a fatal crash every day. The fact that it not only was it not a fatal crash, but we would be discharged from the hospital the next day. Oliver had minor road rash, which has gone away, and then a mild concussion. Follow-up x-rays would show that it was completely gone. So we walk away from the crash with virtually no injuries, physical injuries. 2 Isanti County deputies happened to be there at that exact moment, which if you think about it, Isanti County is a rural county. I don't know how many deputies they have on at a time. I can't imagine it's more than 3. And the fact that 2 were in the exact same spot that we needed them to be at that exact same moment. I was blessed with the training and experience I have received to bring Oliver's physical body back. My dad did a career that provided him the ability to stay calm in a situation like that. So he was surrounded by the right people. The helicopter got us there quick. I just happened to force him to wear jeans that day, even though he didn't want to. If he was wearing shorts that day, I don't even want to know what he would have looked like. His helmet took the brunt of the damage, and he left with a mild concussion. And what really made him the most mad was the fact that they had to cut his shirt that he had signed by Tyler O'Hara. Here we go. Right there. He was so mad about this. The fact that he saw Jesus Christ, and Jesus told him, "Oliver, you will be okay." And Oliver said, "The next thing I remember, I woke up to you yelling at me." There is no doubt in my mind that Christ is alive. Christ is real. And Christ is in our lives. All we need to do is ask. If you take any one of those instances, 2 deputies in the area at the same time, if that was the only circumstance, you'd go, well, that was lucky. But when you factor everything in, there is no doubt in my mind that what Oliver said and what he saw is true. If you made it this far to the video, I appreciate it. This is my testimony. This is Oliver's testimony. Oliver ended up surrendering his life to Christ as well. And at the Easter service at church, they passed out this little card, and it said, if you want to take the next step and follow Jesus Christ, write your name down. And I wasn't thinking anything of it, but Oliver said, "I want to put my name down." And I looked at him and I said, "Really?" He goes, "Yep." I said, "You're going to follow Jesus like me?" He goes, "Yes." I said, "I think that's awesome." And my 4-year-old is growing up with Christ in his life. I'm not a perfect person I will never claim to be. I'm not going to claim to be a saint. I have made horrible choices and mistakes in my life, and I've lived a very Christless life. But wow, that moment shook me to my core. And it's my hope that somebody out there hears this message and this testimony and changes their life too. So thank you for listening. Share it around. It's going to be public. Share this everywhere. The more people that hear the message about Christ, the better. Thank you.